Good morning, good afternoon, good evening from wherever you are. Welcome to our University of Roehampton, London online live Q&A panel. So why are we here today? It's morning where I'm from. We're here in Amsterdam and it's a sunny day and we are ready to talk about everything that has to do with online studies. If you've just tuned in, you're probably in the beginning of your first module or towards the end of your first module. Anyway, it is the beginning of the experience of being an online student. And we've organized this panel today with our two lovely speakers with the purpose of making sure that you get out of these few minutes, half an hour to 40 minutes, with as many questions as you have being answered about everything that has to do with online studies. My name is Michael. I am going to be the moderator for today's event, and we have two lovely panelists with us from different parts of the world, and we are going to talk about their experience and their journey of being online students. Hello, good morning or good afternoon, Maeve, B. Hi, how are you guys doing today?
Yeah, pretty good today. Thank you.
Okay. Before we start, we just want to have a bit of information about where you're from, what program you're studying currently with the University of Roehampton, London online, and what module are you in, so people kind of get an awareness about who we are going to have today. So whoever wants to start.
Okay, well, I'll go for it. I'm from South Africa. I live in Johannesburg, and I'm doing the Master's in Psychology degree through Roehampton. I'm busy with Module 5 at the moment. I started my studies right at the end of 2015, in December 2015, so I've been at it for about a year and a half, almost 2 years now. Yeah.
Okay. And Maeve?
I'm living in Doha in Qatar in the Middle East at the moment, and you'll probably tell from my accent later on, I'm originally from Ireland, and I am finished actually. So to give you some hope, I'm a survivor. I handed in my final project in January 2017, and I recently got the good word that I have passed. So I studied the Masters in Public Health program. So I started in August 2014, finished January 2017, and I will have my cap and gown affair in January 2018, I believe. So I'll finally get to see the bricks and mortar of Roehampton rather than the virtual classroom. So
that is
I'm
exciting.
a survivor.
Yeah, we're probably going to see Maeve at graduation in January. So congratulations as well, Maeve. That's brilliant to hear. Okay, so there you have it. You have someone studying in the middle of their online experience. Someone has just recently finished, and they have a wealth of knowledge about how to study online. What are the tips, what are the tricks, and how to best go about doing it. And if you are at the beginning, and if you are a bit unaware, or if you're a bit struggling with the online studies, this is the time that you can ask your questions. So how we're going to do it is that we are going to have a couple of frequently asked questions that we've prepared. We know this because we've had a lot of conversations with different students. And then, of course, you can ask as many questions as you can. So the Q&A section is open during the conversation, and we're going to get your questions as they come. I'll ask Stephen, my producer, to send them to me as they come. And in the meantime, we have a series of already prepared questions that we want to also discuss. So yeah, let's just dive into it. So the first question, of course, that a lot of people ask at the beginning, thinking about the beginning of the program, how did it feel when you guys first started? What was the experience like?
Okay, would you like to go first, B?
Okay. Okay. Well, it was overwhelming and exciting, and I was nervous and I was a little bit scared. I didn't know really what to expect. I started my studies at the same time as work. There was a whole bunch of other changes in my life as well. So it was just, if I think back on it now, it was actually quite overwhelming. And I think about a month or two after starting, my main thought was, what have I done? What have I done? Why am I doing this to myself? But things got calmer after that. But yeah, in the beginning, I think it was mainly excitement and nervousness. About measures, yeah. I would say that's what it felt like. And you, me?
Yeah, for me as well, it was actually mainly excitement. It really, really was. It was almost like the first day at school all over again. And while it's the start of your online, studying journey, it was almost the end of months of considering it and considering all my options. So it was nice to have finally made a decision and to be starting something, to be proactive about it. So it was definitely excitement and buying new pencils. It really was like going back to school, that excitement. And yes, of course, it hit me then that there's actually a lot of hard work involved as well as having nice pencils and nice binders. But again, once you start as well, you realize this is doable. This is doable, and you start arranging your life around it. So it's good to start. You're excited starting, then you will have a moment of like, okay, this is going to be hard work, and then you will have the moment of like, I can do this.
Yeah, that's true. That's basically how it goes for almost everyone that we talk to. But it is, so I know that for Maeve, it is the first experience of studying online, and I know that Bea also had because we had a conversation with her previously, she also had another degree that she did long distance. But how was the online environment at Roehampton? How did you find it? What was challenging? What did you find navigating the online environment in your studies? How did you go about doing it? Let's start maybe, what was the challenging part, and then what was something that was easy from the beginning?
Well, I think the online environment is quite intuitive. It's a bit slow sometimes to load because internet connection in South Africa isn't always that great. So sometimes it's a little bit slow, especially the shared activities. If there's lots of posts or things like that, it can take a while to open. But in general, I didn't have much problems with navigating the online platform at all. It's all very clear. It just took about, I'd say, a morning of sitting and going through all the links and seeing what's what and so on. I have found, not sure if it's relevant to now, but some lectures, for example, some lecturers prefer using the contact faculty member button on the online on the website, and others specifically told us never to use that and only to use emails. And that's just about the only thing. And sometimes they use different terms for exactly what they mean. Like they'd say, go to this button, and there isn't a button with exactly the words they call it. But then you just have to ask. You just have to ask. And I think that's one of the main things I've learned with distance learning and with Roehampton specifically, is if you have any question, if you're struggling at all, just ask. Don't sit there for hours and hours trying to figure it out on your own. There's people there whose jobs it is to answer your questions. So yeah, so that's made it really easy, I think. It's intuitive, and there's people to help if you get stuck. So that was my experience of it.
Yeah, similarly, I would agree with Elizabeth. I think the whole platform is very well set up. There was also some induction programs before you started your program, just to make sure that you could navigate the classroom quite easily, just to remove any logistical barriers, because you should just have intellectual ones rather than logistical ones. And like that, I struggled probably with the critical thinking aspect of things, because my primary degree was a science degree. And science, it's either right or it's wrong. And so for me, I struggled with that. And like Elizabeth said, if there is something that's quite vague, you should just contact your instructor, whether it's through the contact faculty member. But at the start of every module, your lecturer for that module will have a session with you, so you will understand how they would prefer you to communicate. Likewise, your fellow classmates, you will get to know them through the shared activity discussions. You will find yourself forming bonds with certain people. There's always going to be, in any group, intergroup immersion. So you are going to find, your friends, and you can set up a Facebook group. And I found like that really, when you're struggling, 9 times out of 10, if you posted, anyone else struggling with this, you usually had a thread within 5 minutes. Yes, but I tried this, or I tried that. So your classmates will help you through the hard times as much as your instructors. And the actual platform is very, very well set up, very easy to navigate. And I think Roehampton know that this is a lot of people's first time probably studying online, so they have set it up to make it as easy as possible.
That's wonderful to hear. I also have more of a practical question. So you go back, you think about your first month or so. If you were to make kind of a to-do list of these are the things that I should have focused on to prepare. Maybe it's your laptop, maybe it's your internet connection. What were the first few things that you needed to make sure that you have in order when you started online to make it easier for you for the rest of the studies?
I think have a designated study area is a good idea. Just so you know then that area is for study, and when you sit there, you know you should be doing college work. Also just check, and again, the college are very good at letting you know what operating system you need. They recommend Google Chrome over Safari in terms of the browser. So just make sure you have all of that done, and that your computer is, you know, most computers and operating systems can handle the software that Roehampton uses. Also, it's worth at this point looking at a reference, some kind of referencing system that you're going to use. For example, there's RefWorks, EndNote. You can get free samples of those, and you can work with those just to have one, because you need a referencing system. It will save you a lot of time. And again, it's personal preference which one you want to use. So definitely have a look at the free samples of RefWorks and EndNotes to see which one you want to use. I had a friend that was a clinical librarian, so she was also she was able to like guide me in the right direction. So those would be the practical things: your computer and your referencing system.
Okay. And B?
Yeah. Yeah, I think that having a dedicated study area is really good. Obviously, many people, like I myself, I work on my computer. It's the same computer I use for study, so it's sort of my work and study space. But it's good to have a separate space like that. And then if you have to work on a computer, if you have to work on your normal use computer for university stuff, it's worth also looking at some of the programs you get that if you know you tend to be sidetracked with Facebook or with this or with that, you get programs you can use that locks you out of anything else for 2 hours.
That's true.
Which is useful. I mean, for me, sometimes I usually have my Gmail open, but people chat to me on Gmail. So when I sit and I need to work on an assignment, I close all of that so that it doesn't even look like I'm online, because those distractions just breaks into your flow rather severely. And if you don't have the self-discipline to stay off the distractions, there are programs you can load on your computer that will make you unable to log into Facebook or your email or whatever for the next 2 hours or whatever, however you set it up, and that can definitely be useful as well. I actually prefer not using Chrome. You mentioned that the Roehampton site prefers using Chrome, so you can get away with using Safari or Firefox, but then you must just be prepared to often go and clear the cache and the cookies, and if there's issues, test it on Chrome first, and possibly the issue might work on Chrome. The problem might not be a problem on Chrome. So you don't have to use Chrome, but it does work better on that browser, yeah.
Yeah, and the cache and cookies, always need to clean them up. We've had a lot of people having those kinds of issues. Oh, thank you so much for that. So yeah, there you have it, a short maybe to-do list that you can go back and check. Designated space, web browser, referencing system, very good tips to have at the beginning. Okay, we already have a couple of questions from the listeners. So Maeve, this is one more directed to you. Someone says, thanks Maeve for raising the issue of critical thinking. Please, how did you overcome that challenge? I'm going through the same issue right now. So how did you go about teaching yourself how to critically think, Maeve?
That's a critically think. Well, I think you have to look at what has been asked, the questions that have been asked, and you just have to look and say, is there a better way of doing this? Is this the only possible answer to this? And rather than being like, is it black and white? You could be like, and look at what the alternative is. Say, you know, if it's like, is this the best way of doing this? Then be like, no, it's not. Yes, it is. And maybe argue both points yourself and then come to the final decision yourself. But critical thinking, it's just a matter of not thinking outside the box. Always think outside the box. Think of every possible scenario in relation to a topic, and then for you to come up with the best answer to it. Rather than thinking just yes and no answers, it's more thinking about the broader picture. But it's definitely something I struggled with, and it is something you will get better with throughout the modules.
Okay. Do you have any experience with this, Bea, about how you overcame some of the tasks that you had, where you had to really think about the answers and the questions?
Well, something that I found useful is to find two opposing viewpoints on the same topic. Like you have to write an assignment or something on a specific topic. Find two studies that have different findings, that actually have opposing views, and then already, if you just in your assignment refer to two studies that found contradicting findings, and you discuss that, it's already a step up on the critical thinking level, because you're looking at two opposing views and contrasting them together. So even if you don't come up with something yourself, you can at least use what's already there to not just show, oh, I rate this and this is how it is. You can say, I rate this and I rate this that says the opposite, and this is why I think this one or that one. And that, I think that's just using that strategy to go and look for articles that says the opposite of what I expect to find, often helps you to just bring in more angles. And yeah, that gives you something to discuss. Okay. And then there you can always go and look at the studies to see if you can find maybe something wrong with the methodology of one of them, or if you can poke a hole in the theories of one of them a little bit, and then you can build your argument from there. Yeah, so that's where I would start with that.
Perfect. There you have it. Very, very good tips. Moving a bit forward, a lot of people also sometimes overlook this at the beginning, but in our experience, it's always very, very important to look at these things. Let's talk a bit about your support systems. What were the support systems that you guys used to help you through the online experience? Because at the end of the day, you have your jobs, you have your families, you have your social life, but sometimes you do need support systems to help you through. So how did you go about creating the support systems, and what kind of support systems did you have to help you study online?
Well, something that was useful for me is I live in a house share arrangement where I share a house with other adults who are all working, etc. And one of them has been a long-time student, and she was definitely incredible help with the academic aspect of stuff. I mentioned that there was quite a bit of a jump in the demands between the degree at Roehampton and the previous degree I did, and she was a great translator to translate academic speak into ordinary English for me, so I could understand what Roehampton wanted. And yeah, just making contact with someone that I think has been been busy with the academic process for a long time, because there's very specific things that I found that causes stress for students. And the further on in your studies, it's often that kind of thing where, but I have to do my very best. I have to hand in the most perfect assignment I possibly can. But the fact of the matter is, you can always spend 10 more hours on an assignment and add another study in there and edit it a little bit more. So to make contact with someone who's had a long history of studying, who can help you, just to tell you you're not going insane and it's okay and this is good enough, that kind of thing. That was very valuable to me. That was very, very valuable to me. And also just for family and friends to understand that you're not going to be able to see them as much as maybe you have up to that point, to get that kind of understanding from the people who are used to spending a lot of time with you, even though it's not such a direct support structure thing. It does take a lot of pressure off if you don't constantly feel you're letting people down by not showing up for Sunday lunch, Yeah. I would say those two things were important for me.
Okay. For me, I think the biggest support system was actually my fellow classmates. So I really would encourage everyone to get to know their fellow classmates, which you will through the shared activity discussion, and probably setting up a Facebook page of some description, because they're on the same journey as you and they're going to be having the same issues as you. And sometimes, as Bea said, it's just a matter of someone reassuring you that you're doing fine, you're doing your best, this is normal, you're going to have your ups and downs. So definitely reach out to your fellow students. And like Bea, I also had a friend here in Qatar that was studying, she was studying by distance as well, online. So she was a good support system too, because she went through very similar emotions. And you just let your friends and family know you are studying, so they will give you a break, and you won't feel you won't feel bad when you cannot fulfill all your commitments socially, and they will understand because they know you're busy and you're trying your best. That would be my tips.
And you are doing something that is worthwhile, and you are doing something that is important to you, so people will, in general, will understand and will give you the time.
Absolutely.
Okay, now the million-dollar question, because probably this question is on everyone's mind. How do you manage your time? How do you juggle between studying online, having a job, having a family? What's the secret, or what are the tips and tricks that you guys can give our audience to put them at ease, because you've done it and it can be done, and for sure anyone can do it if they put their mind to it. So what's the secret for you?
Okay, well, I really want to reiterate Bee's point. Social media was not as mainstream the last time I was studying. I graduated from my undergrad in 2006. So social media is a massive rabbit hole, and I completely agree with Bee. Turn it off. If you don't want to turn off your phone, maybe just make all of that inactive while you're studying, because you will waste so much time on social media. I think we all do. We're all guilty of it. So I think that is the key. Realize that you're working. Your work hours are what they are, and they're probably not going to change, because work is your bread and butter and probably your number one priority. But you need to then figure out, when you're not working, where you're most productive. You will discover whether you are a morning or an evening person in terms of when you're best intellectually. For me, I was much better in the evening, actually, which was quite surprising to me. I thought I was a morning person, but I was actually far more productive in the evening. You need to just have a look at the rubrics and see the scoring system, because again, another million-dollar question is, how much should I write for this? How much time should I spend on this? That is going to guide you, because that is basically, the marks is going to reflect your performance, that module. So have a look at the rubrics, so you're not wasting time on areas that you're not going to get marks from. So have a look at that. And we started on a Thursday. A Thursday was when the module started. So perhaps Thursday, just read the intro and read the shared activity topic, and read the final assignment, just so your brain is already thinking about possible answers to those questions while you're reading your assignments. My tips.
Okay, thank you so much. Elizabeth, how did you solve the million-dollar question?
I don't have a very regular work schedule. I'm a freelancer and I work shifts, different days of the week, etc., etc. So originally I thought I would take, the first 2 hours every day and set that aside for studies, but that didn't work out that way at all, because my work just doesn't allow for that kind of thing so well. So I actually work kind of more unstructured, I think, than most people do, but I handle that by making sure I stay on time. So I have a Google Calendar where the start of each unit is marked. Every unit, if a unit starts on the Thursday, by that Monday, I want to have my first shared activity post out. By the first Wednesday, 1 week into the unit, I want to have my shared activity post and the minimum required 2 responses already out and done. And then I put that aside until I finish my assignment. So I have larger chunks of time to work better than, because sometimes I have a whole day where I'm on call and I don't get called out, and then I can spend that time studying. But I use that Google Calendar structure to make sure I stay on time, because I don't do the 2 hours every morning kind of thing, or 3 hours every morning, or whatever. And I also think what Neve said is very, very important, that before you even start your readings, before you do anything, read through the module introduction, read through the unit introduction, read your shared activity instructions 5 times before you even start the readings, read your assignment. Actually, when I do my readings, I even have I copy-paste the shared activity and the instructions for the individual assignment into a Word document that's open on my screen the whole time, so that I can remain task-focused. So when I go, maybe this is something that fits more with another question, but it's definitely made my time management a lot easier, is to right from the start be task focused on what you do. Look at what do you have to hand in to Roehampton. You have to hand in your shared activity, your responses to that, and your individual assignment. So when you start with your readings, just scan read it, looking for things that will help you do the shared activity and the individual assignment. Just get through it as fast as possible, because in the beginning I used to think you have to read through all the readings in detail first and then do your shared activity, but by then you've forgotten what you read where. So now I just scan read through, highlight bits that are relevant to the shared activity, and then I can always go back and find them easily. Because if you want to read through all your readings first and then do the shared activity, you're never going to have it done in time. And I've spoken to other students about this before, and we all kind of feel like, no, but we want to read everything in detail because we want to know the material. The fact is that the readings you have is a fraction of everything out there that there is to read on the topic. You can always go back to it, read more on it, more detail on it later, go do your own research in the library on the topic later. But the most important point is to stay task focused and get that shared activity and that assignment done first, and then get sidetracked with reading things in detail or looking for more articles or something like that. Because I did find that in the beginning I spent so much time wasting time on, not social media, but in the library, just getting sidetracked with this article, that article, or reading things in way too much detail. It's all about, I think, part of what gets tested with a master's is whether you can sift through masses of information to get to the point. So yeah, start practicing that right from the start. That would be, and sometimes, sometimes the shared, not the shared activities, the readings, they're not all as relevant as you would think to the specific shared activity question. Then rather scan through that article very quickly and go look for a more relevant one in the library, because that you can use in your shared activity, you can use it in your assignment, and it's going to be good information to have as well. So yeah, that for me, time management wise, approaching the shared activities and the readings and stuff like that has been very, very useful. That and the Google Calendar, having things scheduled, and make sure you never get like behind on schedule. Like have that shared activity post out on the Monday. And also again with the communication thing, the moment you see that you might have trouble handing in an assignment on time, just send your lecturer a quick note saying, listen, this week has turned really crazy. I am going to do my best to hand the assignment in on time, but I am struggling a little bit. Just a heads up like that, and often you'll be rewarded with a little word of encouragement or something saying, just hand in what you can, or, speak to me closer up to the time, so that you don't sit with that constant stress of, oh my gosh, I might not make it, I might not make it. Just communicate. Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah. And yeah, that's already getting into the second question, because I see that already 2 people have asked this. Okay, so these are our foreseen situations, but how do you manage the unforeseen situations where you still have to deliver on the deadlines, but there are circumstances that you don't have a gauge on, and they happen, and then you still need to submit your activities? What's your secret there? How do you manage the unforeseen circumstances?
The unforeseen circumstances. What I would completely agree would be, look at what is essential, and the shared activity is 20% of your module, and it does not take long to log in, see what the discussion is, and to offer some response or to offer some counter argument. So I would completely agree with B, make that your priority for a unit, because that is going to count towards the end. But if you don't get your assignment done, your assignment is to hand in and to get some feedback, which will then contribute to your final project. But your shared activity is essential. So prioritize that. And really, there is no excuse. Like, you really can just log in for 5 minutes every day. 5 minutes is nothing. You can do it first thing in the morning, last thing at night, just to see the discussion and to add to that, and just to show that you are contributing. And I would agree with B, don't start reading all of this material. Again, it's back to the critical thinking. Your instructor does not want you just to regurgitate all of the material back into the assignments, because you're meant to be critically thinking, and you will find that you're going to be using other resources besides the provided materials. They are helpful, but there are other resources. So my advice would be, your shared activities discussion, and if you cannot get your unit assignment done that for those 2 weeks, that's fine. You're going to be doing it at the end of the 12 weeks anyway.
Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect. Do you want to add something to that?
I would say the same. Like, I'm aware that not all the courses at Roehampton are structured exactly like this, but if you're doing a course where the assignments are there to hand in to get feedback, hand them in as much as you possibly can. Ask your lecturer if you can hand them in a day late if you have to deal with unforeseen stuff, and maybe still just get some feedback. But it's not the end of the world if you miss an assignment. It's the end of the world if you miss a module project, but it's not the end of miss an assignment, and sometimes it's going to happen. I think I'm now in the middle of module 5. I think there's been 2 assignments that I just couldn't hand in because of unforeseen circumstances, but again, it was okay. And again, I let the lecturer know ahead of time, because if you just don't hand in assignments, it reflects badly on you as a student and how involved you are. So if the lecturer knows that you've kept in contact, you've kept up with your studies, I'm sure that counts in your favor as well. But yeah, with the unforeseen stuff, it's bound to happen, and the sooner you communicate with the university about it, the better. Yeah, and with the shared activities, while it's ideally each shared activity should, each post should have argument and references and everything, especially once my first 2 responses are out. I often will just make a personal comment on something, or maybe tell something that's relevant to the discussion that I've seen in my work or something like that. And that doesn't have to take long. It doesn't have to have references. You're not making a little academic piece there. You're just contributing to the conversation. So it's not like every single post you have has to have references. Obviously, if you're saying something that needs to be referenced, then it needs to have references. But some of it can be just personal anecdotes and things like that that help the discussion along. And that also shows that you're contributing to the conversation. So yeah, it doesn't have to be long involved posts every time, especially if something unforeseen has happened and you now have to manage your time. Yeah.
Okay. B, you've mentioned Google Calendars. My next question is more into the practical use of tools. What kind of tools did you use in your online studies to, manage your time, to manage your resources? Anything that you guys can give as ideas to people to make their lives easier?
Well, I think the referencing system, although I confess I'm not very good at using one like that myself. I have been told many times that I would kick myself once I find out how useful it is. But yeah, I've heard that that's a very, actually an essential tool to use. I've got a bit of a clunky, my own system going. It would probably have been better to just use an automated or a program that was written for that from the start.
Is there a website that you can reference that people can go to easily, I don't know, help them with referencing?
What was the ones you mentioned earlier? RefWorks and EndNote.
RefWorks and EndNote, yeah.
RefWorks and EndNote.
EndNote,
okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And they will actually give you a free trial.
Okay, perfect. We'll see if Stephen can pull them up and put them in the chat box. Okay, so referencing systems, other tools, Google Docs for your calendars. Anything else that you used, B?
Oh, the Grammarly. I use Grammarly to check every single thing I hand in. There's also an online grammar checker called Hemingway, but I think Grammarly is actually better, but sometimes I just run it through both to make sure. So I use that a lot to check the quality of my writing, and before I hand things in to check for mistakes or things like that.
Okay.
Be the main ones, I'd say.
Okay. One more question before we move to Maeve. So how did you manage your digital documents? What did you use? Did you save them on a computer? Did you save them in the cloud?
I used Google Drive for everything because I used to be a freelancer doing computer work as well, so everything had to be backed up in the cloud to be safe. So for me, okay. I mean, I know options like Dropbox or whatever. I use Google Drive, and everything I do is just immediately saved on there. I don't even save it on my computer and then go copy it. I save it straight into the cloud immediately. And that's also been really useful, especially for people who have to travel a lot for work and so on, because it means, like, if you visit friends or something like that and you have access to their computer, you can access all your documents on Google Drive or Dropbox or whatever it is that you use. So that's been very useful.
Okay, perfect. And Maeve, what are your tools that you've used?
Like the Dropbox, save all your material and save all. In fact, save all of the readings that you're given, because there is a time period when they're no longer available to you. So just whatever you found useful and that you might reference again, particularly in your final project, make sure you save that to a Dropbox or to a USB or something. And Grammarly is an invaluable asset. Like I ran everything through Grammarly, and it will actually help you improve your grammar. After a while, you will not need Grammarly. And your referencing system, you will save so much time with your referencing system. You could spend hours referencing an entire document if you did not do it as you went along, if you are going to do it manually. But I would strongly urge everyone to use either RefWorks or EndNote or whichever one that they find most useful. But a referencing system will save you a lot of time.
Okay, perfect. Good. Let's go to some questions that we have from the audience. So, also one on communication. Can I get any help on how to reach out to fellow students? Sometimes I think that I'm a bit afraid to reach out and get help. How did you go about, passing your fear of, talking to people online?
You just need to put yourself out there. I think within the shared activities discussion, you will notice more dominant characters even after a few weeks. And there are people that kind of skulk in the background, but everyone is contactable through the classroom, the platform itself. You can contact any member of any students if you want to do it that way, which is a little bit more formal and it might not seem as direct. But really, I've never had a problem reaching out to any of my classmates. Everyone was very receptive and happy to hear from you and happy to make a connection with you. So I think just put yourself out there. You won't be rejected, really. And it's through the classroom platform if you don't have a little Facebook group set up.
Okay. B, do you have any experience? Any good tips?
We've never created a Facebook group or anything like that. I think that's a great idea. I think that's actually a really, really good idea to just right at the start of your study, start a group like that where people can chat more informally and so on. I have contacted some of my fellow students with questions and just some discussion, like sometimes an interesting discussion topic comes up in the shared activity and you just want to have a chat about it and not necessarily have a whole formal discussion about it. So I've contacted people with that as well. And I just used the messaging system and sent them a message via the Roehampton site. And yeah, I've never had a negative response. Everyone has always been happy to hear from me, always resulted in a little bit of support and a nice interpersonal connection. So it's that experience has been positive. But I think the idea of creating a Facebook group or something like that is actually a very good plan. Yeah. Sooner the better, because it's the same group of students you're going to be with, with some getting added and some dropping out over time, but the core group will stay more or less the same through the time that you study.
And we do live in a digital world, and you have so many tools available for communication wherever you are across the world. So yeah, it is important. And also remember that the people that you have in your classroom, they're going through the exact same experience. Why not reach out to them? Why not ask for help or give your advice or your input? Because you are connected through this experience together, and that's a very, very powerful statement right there, because you can rely on their experience and they can rely on yours, because you are going through it at the same time within the virtual space that you have. So definitely reach out to your classmates, and definitely reach out to the faculty at Roehampton, because they're always more than willing to help and hear you out and solve any issues that you might have. And also the support system that we have here, with the student support system, that they are more than willing to also help you with anything that you have. We are currently getting close to our final end marker. We have 2 more questions that I want to go through. And The first one that I want to is also from the audience, and it's a very specific one. How do you remember to save, or how do you remember or save articles you have read for future use? How do you use? How do you go about taking the article, especially when you travel? What do you do with the articles that you need to read? How do you remember to read them? Because at some point there is a lot of material out there.
If there is some articles that you think, okay, I'm going to just read this on my commute, on my journey, email it and open it, and you can save it to your iBooks. I used to save quite a few like as a PDF, and I'd be able to open it through my iBooks. If I wasn't able to open it like directly in an email, if the link wouldn't open there, that would be my suggestion. I don't know about you, B. What you suggest?
Because I like working with PDFs because I like the highlighting function, etc. And because Google Drive I can connect to from my computer and I can connect to it from my phone. So, you know, if I'm sitting at work or something and I want to read a bit of the article, I can always access it on my phone. I have a folder with all my Roehampton stuff, and then I've got my readings all saved in there. And every article I use for an assignment or a shared activity that I find in the library, I download and save so that I have it for later. So yeah, and I will keep it all together on my Google Drive account. So that's, I hope that answers the question.
Perfect. Thank you so much. One last question, and this comes from me. And usually we like to ask this question to students that we have a conversation with. So let's imagine that we have a time machine, and then you can go back in time for that time machine. What would be an advice that you would give yourself, looking at yourself now at the beginning of your studies? So you go back in time and you would give yourself an advice, and you are at the beginning of your studies. What kind of advice would you give yourself?
Mine would be remain task focused at all time. Look at where the marks are given. Look at where you need to prioritize your time and your wording and your energies, because your time is precious. So make sure you look at where you're going to be rewarded most substantially. Also, you will, at some point during your journey, think you'll want to drop out. You will. Everyone does. They think it's too much, but you will come out the other side of it. And just remain focused on finishing your master's. Don't get too like caught up in what am I going to do with this? Is it worth it? Your goals at the start and your aspirations at the start of your master's will be very different to those at the end because of what you learn and the journey and the people you meet along the way. So just remain goal focused would be my tip, what I would tell myself from module to module, even unit to unit. Take it unit by unit.
Yeah, I totally agree with the staying task focused, staying goal focused, and something that helps with that is to, like I said, at the start of every module, go read all the stuff, all the unit introductions for that module, so you know where what you're busy with right now fits in the overall program. And I think the most important thing that I've learned through my studies at Roehampton, that is the thing I think I would have liked to say to myself at the start, is good enough is okay. You know, we only have so many hours in a day. We all have other commitments as well. We've got families, we've got jobs, we've got hobbies, we've got, you know, lives. And every 2 hours you spend on one thing is 2 hours you can't spend on another thing. So if you've done a couple of assignments, you know that the assignment you've done just now is going to be good enough to pass with a good mark, or a fairly, you know, a good enough mark, then it's okay to leave it at that and to go spend the next 2 hours on something else that's also important to you. Now, back to that point I said where you can always spend 5 more hours on a thing, but good enough is okay. You're not a bad person if you hand in an assignment that you could have made a little bit better. It's not. You have to have a balanced life, and you also owe it to yourself to spend your time wisely. Yeah, good enough is okay. I think that would have been the best advice I could have given myself at the start. Yeah.
Perfect. Well, there you have it. We've had a plentiful list of tips, tricks, insights, and I hope that you guys found it as insightful as I did. I really want to thank both Maeve and Elizabeth for joining us today to actually share their experience, and it's been wonderful to actually have a conversation with them about that. Thank you guys so much. You do have in the handout section a short bio on both of them in case you want to find out more information on our two lovely students, actually one student and one graduate. And what can I say? Thank you so much. All the best in your journey ahead. I know that it's going to be full of surprising, insightful, sometimes hard experiences, but I hope you're going to pass all of them with success. And this is what we're here for, to support you and to share, experiences and knowledge. And I want to thank our speakers for joining us. Thank you guys so much. I want to thank our attendees for joining. And this has been a University of Roehampton London online event. And I wish you a very good Friday and a weekend ahead, and all the best from here in the Amsterdam office. Goodbye.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.